Hi guys, it's Ben here. I'm out here on this lovely afternoon looking at a beautiful sunset, and I thought I'd take a moment to put together this video. This is the second video on developing your relationship skill set. In the previous video I talked about communicating in values in relationships. In this video I'm going to talk about the importance of maintaining and setting and respecting boundaries in relationships. I think boundaries are something that we've all heard of, we've all experienced in our own way, what it feels like to have a boundary that hasn't been respected by somebody, and the reaction that we can sometimes have when that boundary keeps getting crossed and we just don't set that boundary, as well as when we've crossed other people's boundaries and we've known it's been their boundary and we haven't respected their boundaries. So again, boundaries are always like a two-way street when it comes to relationships. It's in one sense it's about setting mental, emotional and physical boundaries. In another sense it's about us respecting the boundaries of other people. And so often, what happens is if we can't respect the boundaries of other people, we can't expect them to respect our boundaries. And so it has to be a mutually exclusive thing in a relationship, that if you do it, then you expect them to do it, and vice versa. And so there's a few things I wanted to talk about with boundaries. One of them being is that there are different types of boundaries. Obviously we have mental boundaries. Sometimes we just need the space to mentally think things through. Other times we need to set emotional boundaries. Boundaries where we need to say no, or we're overwhelmed, or it's something just too much for us emotionally and we need to take time to slow things down, and we might need space emotionally to sit on something. And physical boundaries where we just need physical space to ourselves, just to be on our own. And I can think of plenty of situations in my own life where I've had to set those different types of boundaries. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was the relationship between compassion and boundary setting. So often in life we think that setting boundaries has nothing to do with compassion. I used to think that. How does compassion have anything to do with boundary setting? But when you really look at it, what you start to see is that if we can't set boundaries and respect our own boundaries and set them when they need to be set, then we cannot have compassion for people, and we cannot do it in a compassionate way. So often what happens is we notice that a boundary is being violated and we don't set the boundary. We let people just keep stepping in until we get to a point where we just react, and then everything just falls apart. In those situations, what you find is it's really difficult to set boundaries and to stay calm and connected, and without actually, putting a massive wedge in the relationship. Because when we have a boundary that's being violated, often what we feel is anger, and we feel maybe frustration, and we feel overwhelmed. We have a lot of things going on inside, on an emotional level, even on a mental level. And all this stuff that's going on can make it so hard for us to be able to have the resources to physically and emotionally or mentally set that boundary with that person we need to set it with. And in any relation, it can be in any relationship, work relationships, relationships at home. Sometimes the relationships that it's hardest to set boundaries with are the ones where the people that we feel most comfortable with, that again we just sometimes fail to acknowledge that we have boundaries around them. And so the first step is setting boundaries, is acknowledging that you have a boundary, that the boundary is being crossed. And once we acknowledge it's being crossed, and we have to find a way of compassionately setting that boundary, saying, hey, you know what, Tom, I really understand that you want to be around me at the moment, but at the moment I'm really struggling with this. This has come up for me. It's nothing personal, but would I be able to have some space right now? Simple things like that. Letting people know when you're struggling and saying, I need some space, I need some time to think that through, can be a really effective way to stay calm, connected and compassionate, and to honor those boundaries that we have. And sometimes we'll get it wrong, sometimes we won't realize that our boundary's being crossed until it gets too late. But then we have to take preventative steps from then on and say, hey, I noticed that this is my boundary and I didn't set it that time, so next time I need to make sure that I do take the time to set that boundary so that I can have that, stay connected with that person and really have that open communication without feeling like I have to withdraw or attack or get defensive or angry or whatever it might be. that comes up as a result of that boundary being crossed. So I hope that gives you a few insights on boundaries. Again, there's things that we just continually develop in our relationships, and there are things that change all the time. So we have to be so aware and conscious of how our boundaries shift and change in different situations and different settings, so that we can maintain that feeling of, you know, being respected by others as well as respecting other people, you know, and noticing their boundaries and being willing to give them space when they need it. So I hope that gives you some ideas. Thanks for tuning in.